And we are live here to chat about the TV that made our week, most notably the WandaVision finale. I'm so excited, and somehow, some way, I do think Kate might be even more excited than I am. Kate, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to talk about tonight's
A
episode finale?
thousand, a thousand.
I
Like I
I
couldn't think of anything else today.
I don't know that I've thought as much about like any other TV show as I have WandaVision in the last week. It was so good. Definitely worth like all the hype. Like I know it's like one of the most hyped TV shows right now and like absolutely deserving of it. So thrilled. The finale is so great and that is like our, main topic for tonight. But other than that, we'll also, go over any news if we have it. We'll talk about what else we watched this week, some DC TV stuff, and just anything else we were watching. We might touch on what we read a bit this week. We'll have a little bit of salty Cammie right at the very, very end. But we'll save that, and then we'll end with some recommendations. So as always, please chat along with us. If you have any thoughts, we want to hear them. We are watching the chat. We do use stage 10, so there is like a 10-second delay or something like that. It might be longer than a second. It might be like a full minute delay. So like we'll you see your chats after like a minute or whatever, if you're chatting live. And without further ado, Kate, is there like do we have any real news for this week, or should we just jump straight into WandaVision?
Uh, Other than the fact that they are releasing on Friday an episode of like how it was made, the show. Other than that, I think that's all the news I have.
Yeah, that's pretty much it too. There's some like rescheduling for DC TV that was going around, but that's not really news so much as it is schedules. So let's just skip past the news and let me go straight to you, Kate, with a question that I want to use to kick us off. And this is a tough
Mhm.
one. Of everything that you got right, what was your favorite thing that you got right?
Oh gosh. Um, I mean, I really liked like. Okay, geez. I think I was most like I reacted most strongly to either when it was revealed that they did feel her pain or like the costume change. But I think because the costume change was kind of like an obvious thing that was a lot of people could have seen coming, I think I'd probably pick the one where I was like, yeah, they feel her trauma and her grief too. It was one that I was kind of like, that's kind of out there. That might not actually be happening, or that might be just like supposition. They may never confirm it. And it was confirmed and like a key element in the episode. I was like, oh, me? Okay.
I was that was probably the one. It was either the one I was most impressed by, or one of the ones I was most impressed by. I would not have guessed that as well. Like that was that, if like once you said it, I was like, that's really good. But last week, even like in my mind, I was like, did they even really like? Did they want to go that complex? So, like that. Like yes, absolutely. It was really well done. Carrie joins us via chat. He says, "Good evening, ladies." Good evening, Carrie. I am so excited to hear your thoughts on WandaVision as well. We're talking right off the bat about predictions we got right. So, one of the things that I really enjoyed was getting to see the whole family fight alongside each other. And this was the first real episode where we got to see the whole family fight alongside each other. So, of the like action and fight sequences, that was the piece I enjoyed the most, even though it wasn't the most over the top CGI, fight. What was your favorite of like the fight sequences? Because there was quite a variety. There was like a verbal fight between two machines floating in the air. Like we really got everything.
I feel like that was strictly written for me. Like, yeah, let's have fights, but also like let's make it psychological and like philosophy based. But so that was very funny, and it was like the most Vision fight you could have possibly made.
Hmm.
I obviously really liked the Bay fight in the sky. I mean, breathtaking, both visually and like just action packed, but also it did have some really fun character moments too, which is always a good thing to have in an action scene. It actually makes me care rather than just, ooh, look at the pretty colors. So it was all the action scenes to me were really good. They had purpose, even to the point of like when Hayward shoots at the kids and Monica steps in, and I'm just like, I hate you, and Monica, I love you.
I love Monica. I know we're jumping way ahead, but I loved that she got the first end credit scene and that it set up so well for her to enter the next Captain Marvel movie, putting some clues together and Googling a little bit. Not like I just knew everything right off the bat, but really excited about that. Um, okay, so action sequences, let's dive into a little bit what you were talking about there with the vision fight because I kind of thought you might like that one. That was a very, if you had put Kate in the writers room, I feel like she would have pitched that type of thing. So, with that said, based on that discussion they had and the theory they were discussing, do you now see what I will refer to as like silver vision or white vision or whatever they want to call him? Do you see him as a real vision?
I see him as a opening for them to reintroduce Vision. I don't think he's in spirit still the same Vision because basically it's a body and memories that does not equate soul, which she was able to give him, but restoring memories doesn't necessarily mean he has. Um, I, from what I saw, I would take the impression that he flew off and has now returned to Wakanda where he died to try to kind of settle down and process what he's just been given, all this information, and piece together where he should be now, 3 weeks, but also 5 years later, and what he how he feels about his past, his history, both um, being a synthezoid, but also like his relationship with Wanda and everything. I can see that they could possibly recreate that, or like at least make him like a friend of hers,
Mm-hmm.
and be like a friendly reminder of the life she's lost. But I don't necessarily think that we're going to get that instantly. That's going to be something they're going to have to build back up.
Yeah, they kind of seem to have reset him in some ways, but he had enough of the parts of Vision for me to believe that he simultaneously is Vision and could be Vision, and therefore, could fall in love with Wanda or vice versa. Carrie in the chat says, I didn't like the physical aspects of the Vision versus Vision fight or the Wanda versus Agatha. The psychological aspects of those fight were great, but the CGI execution was a letdown. That could be one of the reasons why the CGI fights were not my favorite, but I am very easy to please when it comes to like I'm hmm, how should I say? It's not that I'm easy to please when it
When you
comes to fight scene.
interweave emotionality with
Yes.
action, Arrow
Mhm.
season 6, episode 11. Sorry,
Yes.
it's a thing.
Really good example. Like, if you can get me to care about the fight, then I will drop my standards for execution of the fight. I'm not going to criticize a shaky cam. I'm not going to nitpick the choreography if, like, a boot swings past a head or, like, whatever, those little bits and pieces, or the CGI is kind of tacky and obvious. If you can get me to care, then I'll watch. I'm going to give a really, truly terrible example that's not as good as yours, Kate. But and it's not an example where I cared, but it is an example where a lot of viewers did care. So circa 2003 through 2009, somewhere in that quadrant of the early aughts when you were but a wee baby, there was this little known trilogy called Twilight, and they had the worst fight sequences with like almost intentionally bad CGI. Like this trilogy, like they had big names like Muse and Paramore and everything like that on their soundtrack. Like they spent all their budget on soundtrack and literally none on fight sequences. And that's because they knew that the majority of the audience watching was not somebody coming into this expecting like an Avengers level movie. The audience watching this wanted to be able to connect with it emotionally. You give a good soundtrack, like Supermassive Black Hole by Muse, over a really badly CGI'd baseball fight sequence, and they're not going to care about the CGI. So it's just a matter of like knowing where to put the money. And I think they just had to make some budget choices here that were not dissimilar to Twilight's budget choices. Gary adds, it's what Marvel movies always
Mhm.
do, pit folks with the same powers against each other in a massive CGI brawl. Yeah, like Captain America Civil War, I think, did that. I think even in the like Age of Ultron and all that they do. It's interesting because Kate, would you say within like the DC world, so specifically DC TV, because that's what we're more familiar with, do we see a lot of heroes and villains pitted against each other for fights that have like the same powers, or pitted against each other where they have very different and like opposing powers?
I mean, because specifically us, we normally end up siding with the IT people, the science people, and a lot of times you end up putting the science with the science. I would say, and things like with Daisy, I feel like Daisy got a whole variety of villains and like people that we could fight. I wouldn't say it's as like common as, I don't know, Arrow or especially Flash, who everybody's a speedster and nobody's a speedster, and it's just everyone shtick as the villain. Whereas I think DC, it's a little more sparing, and when they do it with a purpose rather than like, hey, I do this and you do this. It's an even playing field. Whereas with Wanda and Agatha, it made a lot more sense thematically and psychologically rather than just, ooh, you're a witch, I'm a witch, woohoo.
Right. I really loved like that we got to see them in different environments too. I like that they were able to like metaphysically or whatever go back in time to the sort of witch space and interact with each other there. There was just, you know, what they lacked in maybe CGI quality, which again I'm not one to like be able to notice or critique, they made up for in quantity. So quantity over quality worked out, I think, in this instance. Okay. I had made a list of questions to kind of ask you, and there were three total, and I already got through two. So I'm going to barrage you with the third one, and then I'm going to let you just take it away with your thoughts on the finale beyond what we've already discussed.
Okay.
Okay. This is the last
Okay.
one, and then your oral defense is over. Okay. What
Okay.
what do you think happened or will happen to the kids?
Okay. Thank you for asking that question.
Okay.
So if we're gonna go super like comic book based, like sci-fi, I think there's some element based especially on certain like key lines, like how she said, "Thank you for choosing me to be your mom." Like emotionally sweet, beautiful, but like if you really deconstruct that, why would we be under the assumption that they chose her unless she kind of plucked them like their souls from a different reality or something like that, that's a little more complex, and that now that she remembers everything she can remember, okay, how she actually created them, because we do get like more insight about how she creates Vision. We don't really get a deep dive into how she created the kids. We're just like, pregnancy, cool. So it leaves a lot of room to explore where they actually came from. And this is kind of getting into like my argument that I'm going to make later about who, like, what a line that she is. But I think when we get into like the Doctor Strange movie, there's potential for it to be like she hears them, whether it be because the dark cold is like, trying to mess with the mind, or like she actually can hear between dimensions now, or whatever that means. I think Strange is going to be like, no, crazy. You can't hear your kids. They never existed. And she's going to be like, no, I hear my kids. They are in trouble. And I don't, if there is any antagonism between the two of them, I think it's going to be more like a Civil War level antagonism where both of them have their reasons for picking a side. And eventually they have to like realize, okay, this big bad is really what's the problem here. We need to work together and save the kids or figure out why Wanda's hearing the kids or like that kind of thing. I think there is more to be explored with the kids. It makes me nervous, but I am excited to see the kids again. I love the kids.
Okay. I am satisfied with that answer and I'm in agreement with it. I I am so curious and I guess I'll say I have high expectations. I don't know when it comes to Strange and Wanda's dynamic. Like, are they going to be constantly fighting with each other? Are they going to be like almost buddy cop duo? Like, what is their vibe going to be? No DC pun intended. I'm really curious. Carrie in the chat says, overall, I really loved the episode. I was a little surprised they didn't spend more time exploring the damage Wanda caused to the residents. I suspect that fallout will be explored in Doctor Strange too. And that's the other. Okay, so yes to what Carrie said, and also if that's explored in Doctor Strange too, like, okay, am I crazy or do we know already for a fact that there's going to be a Doctor Strange trilogy? Because if there is going to be a whole trilogy, then we're going to see, and again, correct me if I'm wrong or missed a movie or forgot a scene, but we haven't really seen Strange and Wanda interact. We've seen them in the same fight. Am I right about that, or am I missing something?
I mean, I still haven't seen all of the movies, but I think you're right because he's pretty new, and I don't think there's any like scenes with them or like anything other than like they're on the same side.
Right. They were in the same side in the big fight against Barney the dinosaur, Thanos. But I don't recall them like
Mm-hmm.
interacting or their powers interacting or anything like that. And I don't recall any backstory that explained them interacting. I could be so wrong though. Like, I am the most casual Marvel movie watcher. Like, I do not usually dissect these movies. But if that's the case, then there's a blank slate aside from whatever comic book fodder they're pulling from to show their dynamic in Doctor Strange 2, and then presuming that they both persist into the third movie, if it's a trilogy, we would have to expect that there's going to be like a different, like something. How should I explain this? Their character progression needs to go from like strangers who might like they're either going to bicker or fight
Be on the same
alongside
side
each
to be
other,
partners.
right, to becoming like super partners to where we care about what happens to them in the end of number 3. And I just don't know what to expect, like a another brother sister thing similar to, like whatever, a found family dynamic, a romance, like what am I to expect there? I don't know. Anyways, go ahead, either responding to that or diving into your theories. I'm so ready.
We're going to come back to that a little bit because
Okay.
I am ready to go. So, you know how a couple of weeks ago I said something about there's not like, yeah, it's about grief, but it's also about fear and guilt. I feel vindicated, okay? Because alongside her journey through grief, we also get this journey to self acceptance. So, I mean, you think back all the way back in her story, she's struggled with the fear of losing control. As a kid, she had the bombing, she felt helpless. And then she gets the powers, but she was then an agent for Hydra and Ultron, and she quickly learned they're not the people to be on their side with. And even then, with like Civil War, then she has the incident with Lagos, and she couldn't control the events there. It was a mess that she couldn't fix. It was a problem she accidentally made. And then you see her after that run away. She is hiding in beginning of Infinity War, and it's not like she's hiding with Cap and Black Widow. She is hiding away from the violence in general. She's searching for a moment of peace, a moment of stability, control. But the moment she's brought back in, that's shattered again. She can't control everything again. So once she loses vision and she is unable to stop Thanos, she goes through this basically wants more reconciliation that she can't control anything around her, which is oddly poetic for her power and the fact that she is controlled by her fear and the fact that she can't control anything in the actual world other than like, she is magic, but she can't really truly control events how she seems to be anyway. So she decides she's going to create this. Well, she doesn't decide. She ends up making this hex, and it's an avoidance mechanism. She avoids the truth. She like, takes on a role. She's basically surrendering control to the story itself, the sitcom story itself. She plays the part of the main character. Hence, she abandons her accent, which honestly, I could talk for hours about how much I actually really like the changing accent all the time. So, in this idyllic world, she can abandon her fear of failing anybody. She can abandon her fear of hurting anybody. She is living in a place where, like we say, it's like she says in the show, sitcom problems are quickly resolved. Except when we find out that that's not true, that she's essentially enslaved an entire town and is torturing them with her own demons, it's a tenfold problem that she has made. Like she was not only avoiding responsibility, but she was also creating more pain unintentionally. But that's what she was doing. So, I mean, we see her in episode 7 start out to see her begin to confront her demons with all of this. And then in episode 9, when she can no longer ignore the fact that she is torturing these people, and Agatha is like, you're the Scarlet Witch, you're dangerous, you're a villain. She has to come to terms and find some amount of self esteem and self worth to accept that she is the hero and to release everybody. And she has to make that choice for herself. So when she says that line about, thanks for the lesson, but I don't need you to tell me who I am. Yeah, she doesn't know what she is. She doesn't know the extent of her powers. She needs to go off and study. But she knows who she is. She knows she's a hero. She knows she wants to do good. She doesn't want to hurt anybody. That was never her intention. So we see that new confidence in her. And when she then ends the hex and she goes up to Monica and says, I'm sorry for any pain I've caused. I don't know this power, but I will. We're seeing her understand that to continue to be the hero she wants to be the person that she knows she can be, she has to learn to finally not allow her fear of losing control. She has to get over that, and she has to now learn to not let her powers control her. She has to take back her own narrative, basically. And that's the only way she's going to protect other people from herself. And that's the only way she's ever going to be able to find peace. And that was a very thin undercurrent throughout the entire show. And to get that resolution was just chef's kiss.
What is so nice about that is we have a grief storyline that also not only includes character development for the person experiencing grief outside of the character development of getting through grief, it also is about her. It's very easy, I think, for grief storylines to be about the person lost. And I think we do see it often that, like, when a woman is grieving, the storyline can very much revolve around a man, but we see it the other way too, where if a guy is grieving the loss of his wife, or like, it's just very hung up on the person who is being grieved. And by having Vision actually there, somehow that is allowing them to focus more on her, because you're not perpetually focused on his absence. They actually had a version of Vision there that she has recreated, and through that they're able to have the story be about him and her, have her grief be about him and her, and give her character development in addition to her grief. So I was very impressed with that. the way they have built and progressed characters through this really took advantage of the TV format. So I loved that. Stormy in the chat says,
Yeah.
super late to the show. Hi, everyone. Hi, Stormy. If you watched WandaVision, please let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what your favorite moment was. Let me know what you would rate the finale. We are talking all about WandaVision, and shortly we will touch on some of the other things we watched this week, such as DCTV, but none of it was nearly as cool as WandaVision. I mean, can Flash compare? Absolutely not. Okay, Kate, tossing it
So
back to you.
I I just wanted to add to that. It's almost like including Vision kind of functions as like him being the vessel for her self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to function almost as like the extension of her that was not weighed down by the grief and by guilt.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to be the one that was curious, that wanted to solve what was going on, even though she was the one like trying to adhere to the system and adhere, like deny that everything was going wrong. And because of that, it kind of finally gave her this ability to confront her responsibility, and which is so interesting because before that, like herself by herself, she's almost a prisoner to her own inability to confront this. That she can't do it herself. She can't escape her own trauma by herself. It very much showed she needed help, even though some of the help came from people like Agatha, who are, you know, morally complicated on a good day. Um, but it also then really tied up the 5 stages of grief really well, because you see her kind of realize this is not a dream. This is, if anything, a nightmare, because it's not only tainting her memories of Vision and all this stuff. Now, obviously, he's not evil, but it's associating it with more pain. But it is making this more painful, and it's spreading that pain to other people. So in the end, it's the only really great thing about this was she was finally able to say a proper goodbye to Vision, even though it wasn't. The argument still stands: was that Vision, or was that just a memory of Vision? Um, but with all of that, the line that really sells to me that she's kind of reached acceptance, ironically, is actually the line, first of all, when she's describing how she made him, but then when she says, in agreement with him, we'll say hello again. Because in context of the story now, Vision's very much like represented what she wanted, the happy, idyllic life that she has wanted, the love and the hope and all of that. But accepting that she can't get that here, and the only place she can get that is by moving forward and becoming a more fleshed out hero. It shows that she can let go of the past. And if she does meet Vision one day in the future, great. But she now has hope and some new life, like she has the willingness to live in the world without Vision. So she moves on, and it's a fantastic way of showing that she has processed this, and she still has to reconcile all the problems that she's created here, and she knows she won't be forgiven for these mistakes. You see her when she's gone, when the hex is gone, and she's talking to Monica, and she is so mournful and regretful for what she's done. But you don't get this sense that she is so caught up on Vision. She'll always miss him. She'll always love him and her kids. But I think it was a great way of telling us, okay, she's not going to make the same mistake again. At least not in the sorrow, grief is going to take over, and she won't be able to control it. She'll probably make more mistakes in the future. That's the hero's story, but it won't be based on this. And it also then shows us she is a hero. I say that with a purpose, because a hero's burden is sacrifice, and even more so, a mother's burden is protecting your children from the cruelties of the world. So we see her sacrifice her happiness, but in the moments when she's telling her family goodbye, she's not the one that's crying. She does not. She holds herself together when she says goodbye to the boys, which is still sad because you could get the implication that Billy knew it was coming and Tommy didn't, which is just sad. Um, but when she's talking to Vision, the one that's she does shed a tear, but the one that actually is more important who sheds a tear is Vision. He's the one that cries, and it's more noticeable. It's because she has accepted the burden of these mistakes and the burden of being who she is, and knows she has to move forward and continue on, even though they don't get that luxury. They
Have you
get
ever seen
they get the
Vision cry
luxury of
before?
this being it. No, that was so because that was so impactful.
That was what was so interesting to me, and I was kind of getting like curious about the physics of that essentially, but I'll jump into the chat first and then circle back to it. Stormy says she would rate 4 out of 5 stars for WandaVision, and she says that she has a question about the finale. Wanda hears her kids. Could a villain be using that to lure her down a dark path? Ooh, interesting. Someone mentioned she could take versions of her kids through the multiverse, and that is in the comics. She can the presence of her kids is inherently tied to the multiverse. And before we answer that, I will also add that Carrie said, "Damn, Kate, I was just going to ask about Vision and why he was able to question her creation. You must be reading my mind." Zachary also says, "Hi, can I join the StreamYard or whatever this is? This is actually on stage 10, not StreamYard, so I can't send a link for this week since we did already start the broadcast. But if you want to video join us next week and talk about what you watched, you can DM me on Twitter, and anybody who's wanting to join via video can join our little video deck here on the side, and you can come on to talk about shows you watched this week. So very welcome to. However, via chat, you can definitely let us know what you thought about WandaVision, or if you didn't watch it, let us know what you did watch this week and what you would rate that. So, circling back to Stormy's question, Wanda hears her kids. Could a villain be using that? Could that be dark arts? Did they commit to light arts versus dark arts? You know, I don't know if Marvel necessarily follows that sort of framework of magic, anyways, but that's like a classic, you know, kind of witch framework of magic. There at the end, when they showed her kind of two different persons in the middle of the, you know, nomadic mountains. What are your thoughts on that?
So I told you earlier this week that you were going to get some salty Kate. So here's
Yes.
salty Kate coming out. So I have seen a lot on social media people saying, "Oh, she's the villain now," and I'm like, "Did we watch the same show?" Yes, there is that one single scene where there is creepy music and she is reading the Darkhold. And if anybody like we've watched Agents of Shield, so we know the Darkhold bad, and plenty of comic book fans probably know that too. But having one moment make it her villainous, no. Her being manipulated by the villain, taking advantage of her motherly instincts to protect her children, even if the existence of them is arguable. Yeah, that's totally believable. I just don't think it would be terrible writing. It would be just like throwing all the work they've done in the show in the face of the fans if then they turn around and make her the big bad for the next movies. I think it will be very much more like somebody's trying to pit her and Strange against each other, or hey, maybe Strange believes her at the beginning and they work together and he's more like a mentor to her. We don't I don't know because I don't know enough of the comic books or the lore really behind her. I just know what I've seen in the show, and I don't think that they should throw away her work to becoming a hero. I can understand the argument that she's an anti-hero. She's made some real big mistakes, including after the kind of arc that she has. She did put Agatha back under that kind of enchantment, which is morally gray at best. Poetic justice, sure, but I as a like judgment of what a hero should do, Captain America would never. But like a Scarlet Witch or a Black Widow, yeah, maybe because they're much more of a morally gray background that has made some really tough choices based on their past. And as much as I was excited about her hero's arc of this story, I fully believed that, yeah, she'd still pick to trap Agatha in this way. And in a weird way, also highlighted, first of all, she understands now the idealism of the sitcom is non existent. And I mean, I could wonder what her relationship going forward with sitcoms would be, but I don't necessarily think that Wanda will be the biggest bad. I think she's going to be at most kind of targeted and manipulated by this person with whatever dark arts and black magic and whatever that Marvel's going to be able to use.
Maybe it's because I'm like a little more familiar with DC, a lot more familiar with DC. And in DC world, like every hero has extremely dark sides and makes extremely bad choices. A really good example is Superman stepping into a tub that Lois Lane was bathing in with his shoes on, which is just I can't think of anything more sociopathic than that. I'm kidding, but like there are some really truly bad choices that heroes in DC cinematic universe especially make, dark choices, not just gray. Um that I just don't see. I could never see. Well, I'm not saying I could never. I do not currently see Scarlet Witch as a villain, and I don't even see her as particularly dark. And by her trapping Agatha in that way, what we're really getting to learn, in addition to what you're saying, is that she recognizes how that is a punishment, how that is a bad thing, because that is something that she was doing to herself for the longest time, and now she is realizing this is a punishment. It is a brief it's a brief, step away from your mind. You can kind of get out of your head for a second, I guess, but it's like hell on earth in some ways. Carrie says in Doctor Strange, the Ancient One used dark magic. It did not make her evil or villain. Compromised, maybe, but aren't we all? Okay, so that's going to play really well into what Scarlet Witch has going on. Stormy says, I don't see Wanda as a villain, but totally more anti hero. I would agree with that. I would see her as an anti hero, but it's just like on the anti hero scale, I don't even see her very close to the middle. Like if we have extreme total Pollyanna hero and we have extreme total irredeemable villain, like just monster, like that example I gave from the Batwoman episode a couple episodes ago, where I was like, they put on a villain of the week that was so starkly far their villain that's like a perfect example of like pure evil. Okay, so we have our two ends of the scale, and we're saying most things here in the middle are anti-hero. I just see her as like very much on the hero side of anti-hero. She wants to do good. She consistently sacrifices herself to do good. She will make bad choices trying to do good. It's just, and again, maybe my perception of this is tainted because I do tend to like anti-heroes, so I do watch them a lot. So like, I'm I'm familiar with the nuance within that world, but she is so much closer to being a hero than she is to being a villain in my eyes.
Well, and during, like, you also have to consider how much you weigh intention into your rating of villain versus hero. Because if you're rating intention, she has fairly heroic intentions. Like I said, she may not be a principal in America, but she is fairly heroic in her intentions. And I think a lot of the kind of conversation that could be had about her entrapping Agatha is whether or not, like, with the innocent people, they're being tortured by her grief. It's kind of an assumption that because she couldn't read Agatha's mind, Agatha also wasn't subjected to her emotional trauma. So therefore, it's more of just like Agatha's kind of trapped in this rut. So it's not as like vile as torturing. It's just kind of a prison of her own boredom, really, of living in a calm world when she has magical powers and probably knows that deep down in her head, but can't do anything about it. So, she, there is some argument to be made about anti-hero, but I do agree with you. She's definitely more hero than anti-hero. And honestly, if we're pointing fingers anti-hero wise, say Oliver Queen for most of his arc was far more anti-hero than Wanda was, because at least Wanda's problems, 90% of issues are unintended consequences. Whereas his was like he was choosing to kill people. And we as viewers, as audience members, like, don't murder's bad, but also get him, Oliver. Like, so I think a lot of it has to do with the framing of, because it's so much of an analysis of her being guilty of her choices. That's why we see it as like these were big mistakes. If we were kind of packaged this as, oh, they're just like oopsie daisy, then it wouldn't feel as much of like a moral dilemma. But because it was, the entirety of the show was like, who's doing this to these people? And then hitting that she was accidentally emotionally torturing them, and how much that knowledge affected her. She nearly broke down and like nearly killed them out of the grief of that. Um, I think that's why it kind of signals to the audience that it's more villainous, even though when you think about like how it's affecting her and her choices that she's actually making, she would never have chosen to do any of this.
Right. Speaking of antiheroes, we do have some antiheroes to talk about this week outside of WandaVision in our commercial break, wherein we talk about everything else. Shall we cut to a WandaVision style commercial break?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to go lightning fast through the rest of the agenda, and then we are going to circle back to WandaVision and we will take it away with any future theories for Wanda. But first, the weather. So, in what else we watched this week, I have some DC TV stuff jumping into a whole other universe, and I have The Good Doctor. So, first of all, we had a new episode of The Flash this week, and this show is a real heart problem because you were talking about antiheroes. Barry went like he was supposed to be an anti-hero this week. He went straight villain, basically to like skim across any of the lore of how they got there. He turned off his emotions. Like he found a way to turn off his emotions and make calculating decisions based on just like an accelerated brain. It was, well, first of all, it was dumb. Like it was extremely reductive and like Big Bang Theory levels of like trying to show somebody be smart and nerdy, but without any like emotional intelligence. It was just straight up dumb. Two, this show already going into this episode had what I'm referring to as like a heart problem. Like there is no romance, there is no heart, there is no, like they try to sell us on like even Barry caring for his family, and he consistently betrays or puts his family in danger. Family being the West, like it's just this show really highlighted the fact that they could take their quote unquote hero and make him a sociopathic anti-hero slash villain for the week, and it didn't even fundamentally change the show. I talked about how I have really low expectations when it comes to fight scenes, and I will say the fight scene was the star this week. They had Frost, Killer Frost, Caitlin Snow's alter ego, briefly become a speedster. As you mentioned, we have way too many speedsters on this show. Everybody becomes a speedster. She gets injected with something. She's trying to take down Villain Barry, and they have this Frost versus Flash fire and ice thing where they're both doing this speed stuff, and she can Elsa style put up ice walls, and it's just really cool in an otherwise disappointing episode. I don't have much to say about Superman and Lois except for it is a high school show, yet somehow I'm enjoying it. I really can't even front and pretend to critique it. It is just, it is good and it is entertaining me. Lastly, we have The Good Doctor. Morgan and Park once again had a wonderful romantic moment. They are living one of my favorite tropes. I believe it's also one of your favorite tropes, the forced to be roommates trope. It is excellent. He bought her ice cream. There was a moment where she was watching him unload the groceries. It is just everything I want in a trope and more. And also, Sean and Leia, my other ship from the show, are pregnant. So, all's going well. Like, that show does not have a heart problem. Flash could take some notes. Turning it over to you, what else did you watch this week besides WandaVision, if anything?
I watched nothing other than WandaVision. I watched the finale. I forced my mom to watch the whole show with me in a sitting. I I then watched a couple more Marvel movies. I have a problem. Cammie, come save me, please.
Kate's gone full Marvel, just full Marvel.
I
Wanda
mean,
took
I'm
you
not
down
like
the tunnel.
I honestly I've watched all like a lot of the Marvel movies and like I watched Black Panther. I'm gonna say something controversial. His suit's better than Iron Man's.
Oh, it's so much
Like
better.
it's just
Strongly
better.
agree.
It's so much better.
So much better.
But so like I liked that one. Doctor Strange was kind of fun. Thor Ragnarok was cool. But I had nothing. I was kind of like, okay, that's fun. All right, I'm done now. I don't need to rewatch it. It's just Wanda. I just love Wanda. If you haven't figured it out, I watch shows because I fall in love with one, maybe two characters, and then I can't
Same.
stop.
Yep. Right there with you. It's why I'm always watching things that I'll kind of like jokingly complain about and jokingly be salty about. And a lot of people will rightfully say, like, life's too short to watch a show you don't like or a movie you don't like or whatever. And it's just, you don't understand. Like, if I'm watching it, it's because I love one character, but I don't necessarily love them all or love the story or love literally anything except that one character. Carrie in the chat says, I will not stand for this Iron Man suit slander. Stormy in the chat says, Barry continues to be the worst. I will always say Barry is the main villain of the Arrowverse. Strongly agree, Stormy. She also points out Grant did an interview where he said there's no kissing this season. He also said it's no different than every other year. No wonder West Ellen fans hated Olicity. I would be bitter too. I'm telling you, like, I don't even like that ship at all. Like, I think that ship is like, it's like hilariously bad, not like annoyingly bad. Like, you know how like there's some ships where you're like, I am offended that this ship exists. It's disgusting. Get it off my screen. Like the Barry and his sister wife is like funny bad, which is I don't think that's what the show's going for. Like, I don't think they want that, but like that's where we're at. But like the fact that they like can't kiss, I'm sorry, they have no chemistry as well. Like he no, like she's too pretty, too smart, too grown, too everything for him. No offense, Mr. Gustin, I'm sure you're wonderful, but no. Anyways, that ship, I'm on their behalf continuously like embarrassed for their fans if there are any still. I don't know. Stormy also said, also on Flash, stop with the Wells. I get it. The actor is great, but he's Kenny from South Park. They must always kill one Wells and get another one from the world. He's the best actor they have on the show, so they're just going to continue to kill and revive him until the show dies, and like they've clearly made their peace with that at this point. Carrie says, I keep saying this, but watch Snowpiercer, strong show, fantastic performances. I have that on my list, and that is actually one that I do want to marathon. Especially, there's like I mentioned at the top of the hour, there's like some scheduling changes with like DC TV shows, whatever. I'm gonna have a bunch more time in my entertainment hours to fill here in a couple weeks because The Bachelor is not going to be airing, so I'm not going to be watching, rewatching, theorizing, and listening to podcasts about The Bachelor. I know, but I've been so good about not mentioning it on here, and like, there's a really good reason for that, and that reason is the season got like crazy controversial, like crazy controversial. There's a girl from a state you and I are quite familiar with, Georgia, who went on this, and I guess some people dug into her past, and she has a very small town Georgia past that didn't quite sit well. So this whole show like like blew up because spoilers. Everyone's also pretty sure she won, so like she makes it to the end. It's just it's a lot. It's extremely controversial. I'm not even going to talk about it on here. So if you've been wondering why I stopped talking about The Bachelor, that's why. Like, I haven't stopped watching it. I promise you. I haven't stopped listening to all the podcasts. I haven't stopped tracking everything. But I have nothing to say. No thoughts. Head empty. Nothing. So good.
I just thought you were trying to take mercy on my soul.
Oh, girl, no, no. I would put you through it if it was just reality TV. It crossed over into like real life. The host of this show is getting fired. Like this is it's a lot. It's a lot. However, they're gonna have 2 seasons of this is super spoiler because this hasn't even been announced yet. I just found this through like internet spoilers. They're going to have 2 seasons of The Bachelorette back to back, and both of the girls that they have chosen as The Bachelorette, I love them. So I will be back. I will be talking about it, but will I talk about this season? Absolutely not. That's not my place. I have no opinions, none.
Okay.
Okay, so with that said, what I read this week was Bridgerton book 3 because it was the only thing downloaded on my phone, and I was like waiting for an appointment. Had to, anyways, finished it. It was not the best, but still okay. Did you read anything this week?
Not really. I finished a YA, like the fourth book in a YA series. The Red Queen. The last three books kind of jumbled together. I'm like, okay, cool. We're done.
Yep. Sounds about right. It's that time of year where we're finishing up winter and all we need in terms of books is just like something with heart that will get us through to spring. Okay, I'm going to go super fast through Salty Cammy Corner because I want you to have some time to close us out with WandaVision. So, suffice it to say, my Salty Cammy Corner was going to be me talking about how we need to abolish the royal family and, as Americans, go take over Britain and establish Meghan Markle as their queen. But I got a bunch of tweets about that. So, Salty Cammy Corner are my tweets that I put out while live watching Oprah's interview with them. If anybody cares, that's where my opinion lies. I won't reiterate it here. I want to save some time for WandaVision. Now, let's move to recommendations. What recommendations do you have for this week?
Well, since I haven't really watched anything new, I'm still keep saying you have to watch All Creatures Great and Small if you're looking for something with heart to get you through to the summertime.
Yes.
And what's something else I should just like? I haven't told you to watch this one in a while. You should watch Poldark. There's a lot of saltiness that we could discuss, but it's also pretty fun.
I should watch Poldark. I can't remember what I didn't. You know what I did watch that I haven't even mentioned? I watched that you did recommend. I watched The Dig. Loved it.
Yeah, I saw you tweet about it. It's not there's not a lot to talk about. It's really interesting history. It did kind of make me go through and read about the ship. It's sad that he didn't really get the recognition he deserved, but it was a really interesting movie.
Yeah, and it was so beautifully shot too. Just
Yeah.
heartbreaking and beautiful, and it was lovely. A really excellent
Mm-hmm.
recommendation. My recommendation for this week is one that I will talk a bit more about next week, as we'll then have 2 episodes of the latest season out. But Good Girls is back. It aired the first episode of the fourth season this last Sunday. It is one of the best shows on TV right now. Highly recommend for pretty much anybody. Like, I don't even have to specify a certain interest, a certain whatever. It will have it excellent. And if you're lucky enough to have not watched it yet and can actually marathon through 3 seasons back to back and not have to wait week to week, even better. That's my recommendation. Okay,
Okay.
with that, I did exactly what I wanted, which is save you at least 5 minutes. I think we are at exactly 5 minutes. I'm turning it over to you to talk about ambiguously the future of Wanda.
So ambiguously, I think we're going to have to see more of her coming into her shoes as a full-fledged leading ticket hero. She has been a hero. She will always be a hero in my heart. Don't take it away from me. But for as much as she's been an extremely powerful character, they've kind of sidelined her. And now we're going to get to see Scarlet Witch kick some butt. And I'm so excited about it. I I hope that they keep at least some level of the amazing emotional writing that we were getting in the show. We've discussed it before. I'm not a huge fan of the movies because of a lot of the sacrifice of the emotion for the action. But they have a whole lot of potential to explore all of that in uh, Multiverse of Madness. I, like I said, I threw out some like theories, expectations of what they're going to do with that. But like I said, I don't have any comic book knowledge, so I really can't make any actual guesses. I'm sure they'll explore some of the missing threads that they did lay out in the show. For example, people were really mad about the whole Evan Peters just being Ralph. I was one of the people that was psyched about it because, first of all, I called it. Second of all, I it doesn't necessarily mean that the mutants aren't going to be able to be coming over. It could simply be that like that's his witness protection name, like that he could be the witness protection person that Jimmy was trying to find. Um, or they could simply be restarting the mutants because, to be honest, that series, that franchise is a large franchise on its own, and trying to carry everybody else over with all of that lore, that seems like a pretty big task. Now, I don't think that they can't do that. I just think maybe they might choose to start fresh. Um, but I am extremely excited to see what happens next with Wanda. I think there's tons of potential to make her the big character in the MCU right now, and I think she deserves it.
I think she does too. And I think one of the things that I saw mentioned almost every week by somebody or other is that every week it's clearer and clearer due to WandaVision that she, of anybody, would have been able to take out Thanos had that movie been written well. Couple things I wanted to mention related to WandaVision. Number one, Kate made a WandaVision themed Spotify playlist, which is in the comments of last week's live stream. Excellent, 10 out of 10 if you're a Spotify user and are interested. Second thing, Carrie in the chat says you tweeted about the Powerpuff Girls casting. How soon will that show happen? I'm not sure, but based on like typical CW flow, I would assume it will start airing next spring. But everything's thrown off with them because of like COVID and everything. I don't know if they're going to try to do like whip out a really quick filming this summer and start it out airing in the fall. That's possible. But Kate, I hope you saw that because you might recognize a face in there leading that show.
I did see that. I was like on the fence about was I going to watch it or not, and the cast clearly didn't. I was like, oh, twist my ass. So now I'm going to be watching that, and I'm going to be watching a sexed up version of Jane Austen. The CW is really trying to keep me around. They are fighting tooth and nail.
They are. They are trying to keep you around and turn you into an alcoholic. That's their goal. They're like, they're like, we are going to force her to drink a bottle of wine and get through this garbage one way or the other. This is part of their long-term master plan. Okay, well, that brings us to the top of the hour. I will go spend the week dreaming up my Agatha cosplay because I have never wanted to cosplay somebody more. And I really do, like, not to toot my own horn, but like, I really do feel like I have the goods to pull it off. Like, a vaguely witchy face, the kind of the hair, like I can make this happen. Okay, I'm not Catherine Hahn. I'm not delusional. I know that I'm not there, but I feel like I can put my best foot forward in that direction, and I want to cosplay Agatha so bad. Stay tuned more on that story at 11. Till next week, Kate.
Okay. You can take me to a con and I'll dress up like Wanda, which I didn't even get to talk about this, but I'll dress up as Wanda in her Depresso Espresso outfit sweats, and then like underneath have her new super suit, like and just like because that transformation, I mean, just the metaphor. So we'll go together.
I'm so excited.
I don't have red hair, but it's fine.
DragonCon 2021, it's happening. At least I think it's happening. Yes. Who knows what COVID's going to cancel? Oh. But I think by then, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, it's Georgia. And with that, it's time to go. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.